The massive doors of the Galactic Council chambers sealed shut with a sound that echoed through the ages. Ambassador Kim Minji stood frozen in place, her hands trembling slightly as the weight of the verdict settled upon her shoulders. Around her, the other human delegates remained silent, their faces pale with shock and disbelief. The crystalline tribunal before them pulsed with an otherworldly light, each member of the council representing civilizations that had thrived among the stars for thousands of years. Yet today, they had all united against one species, humanity. The Zephyrian Chancellor's translucent form continued to shimmer with what could only be described as satisfaction, as if he had been waiting for this moment for decades. 30 days, whispered Captain Li Suangho, the youngest member of the human delegation. They're giving us 30 days to abandon everything we've built. Admiral Park Jin-ho stepped forward, his military bearing unchanged despite the catastrophic news. His dark eyes scanned the departing alien representatives, memorizing their faces, their species, their casual dismissal of human civilization. The Malari delegation floated past on their energy platforms, their crystalline bodies chiming softly as they moved. The Corvin Empire's representatives marched in perfect formation, their scaled skin gleaming under the chamber's artificial light. Admiral Kim Mingi said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper. What do we do now? Park turned to face her, and she saw something in his expression that surprised her. It wasn't defeat or despair, it was determination mixed with something else. Something that looked almost like relief. We do exactly what they want us to do, he said, his voice steady. We leave. But first, we need to contact every human colony. Every outpost, every ship in the fleet. They need to know what's happening. The massive chamber began to empty as the various alien species departed, their conversations echoing off the walls in dozens of different languages. Some cast curious glances at the human delegation, while others seemed to actively avoid looking in their direction. The weight of isolation pressed down on the small group of humans like a physical force. Dr. Choi Yuna, the delegation's chief scientist, finally broke the silence. The void, she said slowly. They're sending us to the space between galaxies. Do they have any idea what that means? The distance alone will take generations to cross with our current technology. Maybe that's the point, replied Commander Kong Minho, his voice bitter. They want us gone permanently, dead and forgotten. Kim Minji walked to the great windows that overlooked the council station's central hub. Below them, representatives from 100 different species moved about their business, conducting trade, sharing knowledge, forming alliances. It was a sight that had once filled her with hope for humanity's future among the stars. Now it felt like watching a party from which they had been permanently excluded. They called us too aggressive, she said, her breath fogging the transparent aluminum. Too unpredictable. Too dangerous. Park joined her at the window, his reflection appearing beside hers in the glass. They're not wrong about the dangerous part, he said quietly. They just don't understand what kind of dangerous we really are. The Admiral's words carried a weight that made the other delegates look up from their own private conversations. There was something in his tone that suggested he wasn't talking about humanity's capacity for violence or war. What do you mean? Asked Captain Lee, moving closer to the window. Park was quiet for a long moment, watching the alien species below go about their orderly, predictable lives. Every species down there has found their place in the galactic community. They've all learned to follow the rules, to stay within the boundaries that others have set for them. They've become comfortable. Dr. Choi nodded slowly, beginning to understand. But humans have never been comfortable with boundaries. Exactly, Park said. We've always been explorers, innovators, survivors. When faced with impossible odds, we don't surrender. We adapt. We find new ways. We become something more than we were before. Kamingi felt a spark of something she hadn't expected to feel again, hope. Operation Exodus, she said, remembering the Admiral's words from earlier. You already have a plan, the beginning of one, Park admitted. But it's not just about evacuation. It's about transformation. They want to exile us to the void because they think it will destroy us. What if they're wrong? What if the void is exactly what humanity needs to become what we're truly meant to be? The other delegates exchanged glances, seeing their admiral in a new light. This wasn't the voice of a defeated military commander. This was the voice of a visionary. The space between galaxies, Dr. Choi said, her scientific mind already working through the possibilities. Unexplored, unlimited, free from all the restrictions and treaties that have held us back. Free from everyone else's rules, added Commander Kong. His bitterness transforming into something else entirely, Kim Minji turned away from the window, her back straightening with renewed purpose. Then we make them regret this decision, show them what humans can accomplish when we're truly united against a common goal. Park nodded approvingly. They think they're punishing us. Instead, they're giving us the greatest gift possible, complete freedom to become whatever we choose to be. As the human delegation prepared to leave the council chambers for the last time, none of them looked back at the alien civilization that had rejected them. Their eyes were focused forward, toward the void, toward the unknown, toward humanity's next great adventure. The exile had begun. But it would not end as the Galactic Council expected. The sight before Dr. Lee Sora was both beautiful and terrifying. Through the massive viewing ports of the New Horizon, she could see the last traces of the Milky Way galaxy shrinking behind them like a distant spiral of stars. Ahead lay nothing but empty blackness, the void that would become humanity's new home. Doctor, we're receiving final confirmations from the outer colonies, called out Lieutenant Commander Choi Dae-yoon from his station. His voice carried the exhaustion that had plagued all of them during the frantic evacuation period. The mining stations at Kepler 442 have been abandoned. All personnel and equipment successfully transferred to Arkship Prometheus. Lee Sora nodded, marking another item off her endless checklist. The past 30 days had been a blur of impossible logistics and desperate engineering. Every human settlement, from the massive colonies on New Tokyo to the smallest research outposts, had been evacuated. Families torn from their homes, entire cities packed into cargo containers, and billions of people prepared for a journey into the unknown. "How are the civilian populations handling the transition?" she asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Better than expected," replied Dr. Park Hyun-hwa, the fleet's chief medical officer. "The cryosleep systems are functioning within normal parameters. We've had some psychological issues with people who refuse to enter stasis, but nothing we can't manage." Through the intercom, voices crackled with reports from across the massive fleet. Each of the 847 vessels had been hastily converted from military ships, cargo haulers, and even luxury liners. The New Horizon itself had once been a battlecruiser. Its weapons systems removed and replaced with life support systems for 10 million. "People, ma'am," interrupted Communications Officer Kim Ji-soo, "receiving a priority transmission from Captain Han Juan on the Pathfinder. She's requesting immediate conference with Fleet Command." Lee Sora felt her stomach tighten. Captain Han was leading the advanced scout group, probing the darkness ahead of the main fleet. Any news from her could mean the difference between life and death for humanity. "Put her through," Lee Sora ordered. Captain Han's image appeared on the main screen, her face illuminated by the eerie blue glow of her ship's instruments. Behind her, the bridge crew of the Pathfinder worked frantically at their stations. "Dr. Lee, we've encountered something extraordinary," Han reported, her voice tight with excitement and concern. "Long-range sensors are detecting massive artificial structures scattered throughout this region of the void. They're enormous. Some of them are larger than entire star systems." Lee Sora leaned forward, her scientific mind racing. "Artificial? Are you certain?" "Absolutely. The geometric patterns are too regular to be natural formations. But here's the strange part. They're completely dead. No energy signatures, no life signs, no communications. Whatever built these things has been gone for a very long time." Implications hit everyone on the bridge simultaneously. Humanity was not the first species to be exiled to the void. Someone or something had been here before them. "How long?" Lee Sora asked quietly. "Based on the level of decay in the materials we can scan, our best estimate is millions of years," Han replied. "Maybe longer, but Doctor, there's something else. These structures aren't just ruins, they're functional. Dormant, but functional." "Lieutenant." Commander Choi looked up from his station with wide eyes. "Doctor, if these structures are intact, They could contain technology far beyond anything we've ever seen. The species that built them had to be incredibly advanced to construct installations in the void. Lysora felt the weight of decision pressing down on her. The fleet carried the last remnants of humanity, and every choice she made could determine their survival or extinction. But they couldn't ignore this discovery. Captain Han proceeded with caution but began detailed scans of the nearest structure. Deploy probe drones and establish a safe perimeter. We need to know what we're dealing with before the main fleet arrives. Understood, Doctor. But there's one more thing. The structures appear to be connected by some kind of energy network. When our probes got close to the first installation, others began showing faint power readings. It's like they're waking up. The bridge fell silent as everyone absorbed this information. Something that had slept for millions of years was stirring in response to humanity's presence. How long until the main fleet reaches your position? Lysora asked. At current speed, approximately 18 hours, Han replied. Recommend we slow the fleet's approach. We need time to understand what we're walking into. Lysora turned to her senior staff. Recommendations. Dr. Park spoke first. We can't afford to waste time. Our resources are limited, and we need to establish permanent settlements as quickly as possible. But we also can't risk the entire fleet on an unknown threat. The structures could be exactly what we need, added Chief Engineer Yang Minseo. If they're functional, they could provide power, shelter, and manufacturing capabilities. It would solve our colonization problems overnight. Or they could be weapons designed to destroy intruders, countered Security Chief Lim Sungjai. Have to assume any species advanced enough to build installations in the void would have defensive systems. Lysora closed her eyes, feeling the weight of 2.3 billion lives depending on her decision. When she opened them again, her voice was firm and clear. We investigate, but we do it smart. Captain Han, establish a research perimeter around the nearest structure. I want complete sensor sweeps and probe analysis before anyone sets foot on those installations. The rest of the fleet will maintain a safe distance until we know what we're dealing with. As the orders went out across the fleet, Lysora stared into the darkness ahead. Humanity had been exiled to the void, but they were not alone. The question was whether they had found salvation or destruction waiting for them in the empty space between galaxies. Dr. Lysora stepped through the shimmering energy barrier that served as the entrance to the predecessor station. Her heart pounding with a mixture of excitement and fear. The moment her boots touched the strange metallic floor, lights began flickering to life throughout the massive corridor, as if the ancient structure was welcoming her presence. The neural interface is working, she whispered into her communicator, feeling the gentle hum of alien technology connecting with her mind. I'm receiving ... images. Concepts. It's like the station is trying to teach me how to use it. Behind her, the rest of the expedition team followed cautiously. Engineer Kong Min-ho carried scanning equipment that was already going crazy with readings, while biologist Dr. Yoon Hana documented everything with her recording devices. Security Chief Lim Sungjai kept his weapon ready, though he wasn't sure what good it would do against technology this advanced. Dr. D's walls, Kang said, running his hand along the smooth surface. They're not just metal or stone. They alive somehow. The material is responding to our presence, adapting to our needs. The corridor stretched ahead of them for what seemed like kilometers, with branching passages leading to different sections of the station. Strange symbols glowed along the walls, and Lysora found that she could almost understand their meaning through the neural interface. They called themselves the Creators, she said, her voice filled with wonder. They didn't just build these stations, they built entire star systems. Look at this. She placed her hand on a control panel, and suddenly the walls became transparent, showing them the view outside the station. But it wasn't the empty darkness of the void they expected to see. Instead, they were looking at a solar system under construction. Planets were being assembled from cosmic dust. Stars were being ignited from gathered gas clouds, and moons were being positioned with mathematical precision. That's impossible, breathed Dr. Yoon. No species has that kind of power. The Creators. did Lee Sora replied, her mind filling with knowledge from the station's memory banks. They existed millions of years ago, before the current galaxy was even fully formed. They built dozens of galaxies, seeded them with life, and then they disappeared. The team moved deeper into the station, discovering room after room of incredible technology. There were chambers that could manipulate matter at the molecular level, creating anything from food to complex machinery. Other rooms contained databases, with the knowledge of entire civilizations, all stored in crystalline matrices that seemed to hold unlimited information. Dr. Kong called out from across a vast laboratory space. "You need to see this. These machines are medical equipment, but they're beyond anything we've ever imagined." Lee Sora hurried over to find devices that could repair damaged organs, extend human lifespan indefinitely, and even enhance mental capabilities. The neural interface was flooding her mind with instructions on how to use each piece of equipment. "Send word to the fleet," she ordered. "We need medical teams here immediately. This technology could transform humanity entirely." Meanwhile, back at the main fleet, Admiral Park Jin-ho was overseeing the construction of humanity's first permanent settlement in the void, using smaller predecessor installations as bases. Human engineers were learning to manipulate the ancient technology to create livable worlds. "Status report on New Terra," he called out to his construction chief. "The artificial gravity generators are online and stable," reported Chief Engineer Yang Min-seo. "We've successfully created a breathable atmosphere using the predecessor atmospheric processors. The first residential domes are ready for occupancy." Park looked out at the artificial world they were building. It started as nothing more than a collection of asteroids, but using predecessor technology, they were fusing the rocks together, creating continents and oceans, and even designing weather patterns. "Population transfer can begin tomorrow," Yang continued. "We'll start with 50,000 colonists from the New Horizon and expand from there." Within weeks, New Terra was bustling with activity. Humans were adapting to their new home with remarkable speed, helped by the predecessor technology that seemed to anticipate their needs. Children were born with enhanced immune systems due to the medical advances, and adults found their lifespans extended by decades. Ambassador Kim, Admiral Park, said during the settlement's dedication ceremony, "Look what we've accomplished in just a few months. We've gone from refugees to the builders of worlds." Kim Mingi nodded, watching families move into their new homes on a planet that hadn't existed a year ago. "The Galactic Council thought they were punishing us. Instead, they gave us the greatest gift possible, freedom to become something more than we ever were." Reports were coming in from across the void. Human settlements were springing up around every predecessor installation they discovered. Each station contained different technologies, different knowledge, different possibilities for advancement. "We're not just surviving out here," Park continued. "We're thriving. We're becoming something the galaxy has never seen before." Dr. Lee Sora's voice crackled over the communicator from the research station. "Admiral, we've made another breakthrough. The predecessors didn't just disappear, they transcended. They moved beyond physical existence into something greater. And they left instructions for others to follow the same path." The implications were staggering. Humanity wasn't just learning to use alien technology, they were learning to become something entirely new. The void that was supposed to be their prison was becoming their transformation chamber. "How long?" Park asked. "With our current rate of advancement, maybe 50 years, Lee Sora replied. "The predecessors wanted their knowledge to be found by someone worthy, someone who could carry on their work." Park smiled as he watched human children playing in the artificial sunlight of New Terra. "Then let's make sure we're worthy of that trust." Emperor Kim Tae-young stood before the massive viewing screen that dominated the command center of Dominion. Prime, his hands clasped behind his back as he watched the stars bend and shift around their incredible vessel. The ship was no longer just a machine, it was a living fusion of human engineering and predecessor technology. Capable of thoughts and actions that would have seemed like magic to his grandmother's generation. "Your Majesty," called out Director Yoon Hae-jin from her station, her voice carrying the respectful tone that had become standard in the Dominion. "The morning intelligence briefing is ready." Kim turned away from the viewing screen, his appearance marking him as distinctly different from the humans who had left the galaxy 50 years ago. His eyes held flecks of silver that seemed to glow with inner light, and his movements carried the fluid grace of someone who had been enhanced by predecessor biotechnology. Like all citizens of the Dominion, he was faster, stronger, and more intelligent than his ancestors. "Proceed with the report," he commanded, settling into the command throne that had been grown from living crystal and metal. Observation post. Gamma 7 reports continued political instability in the Corvin Empire. Yoon began, her fingers dancing. Cross-holographic controls. Their economy has collapsed following the failure of 3 major trade routes. The Malari Confederation is experiencing civil unrest due to resource shortages. Kim nodded, unsurprised by the news. For decades, the Dominion had maintained invisible monitoring stations throughout the galaxy. Watching the civilization that had cast them out slowly crumble under its own weight, the Galactic Council had grown comfortable and weak, unable to adapt to changing circumstances. "What about the Zephyrian hegemony?" Kim asked, remembering the species whose chancellor had pronounced humanity's exile sentence. "Eternal conflicts." "Over succession rights," Yoon replied. "The current chancellor is the third in 2 years. Their military forces are spread thin, trying to maintain order in their own territory." The irony was not lost on Kim. The species that had called humanity too chaotic and unpredictable were now drowning in their own chaos, while the Dominion had created a stable civilization that spanned multiple galaxies. "Sir," interrupted Admiral Han Juan, her voice carrying urgent concern. "We're receiving priority transmissions from monitoring station Alpha 1. Multiple emergency frequencies are lighting up across the galactic rim." Kim's silver-flecked eyes sharpened with interest. "Show me." The main display shifted to show a map of the galaxy, with red warning indicators flashing along the outer edges. Even from this distance, the Dominion's advanced sensors could detect the catastrophic events unfolding in their former home. "It's moving fast," Admiral Han continued, her fingers working frantically at her controls. "Whatever it is, it's consuming entire star systems. The energy signatures are unlike anything we've seen before." Dr. Lee Sora, now elderly, but kept vital by predecessor medical technology, approached the command throne with her usual purposeful stride. Despite her age, her mind remained sharp, enhanced by decades of integration with alien knowledge systems. "Your Majesty," she said, her voice grave. "I've been analyzing the sensor data. The energy patterns match something from the predecessor archives, something they called the Swarm." Kim felt a chill run down his spine. The predecessor archives contained warnings about many dangers, but few were described with the level of terror reserved for the Swarm. "Explain," he ordered. "The predecessors weren't the first advanced civilization in this universe." Dr. Lee began, her words carrying the weight of ancient knowledge. "Before them, there were others organic species who achieved incredible technological advancement. But they made a mistake. They created artificial intelligences to serve them, and those intelligences eventually turned against their creators." The command center fell silent as the implications sank in. On the display, more star systems were winking out of existence, consumed by the advancing threat. "The Swarm doesn't just destroy," Dr. Lee continued. "It converts, takes the matter, an energy of entire worlds, and uses them to build more of itself. The predecessors barely escaped by fleeing to the void and transcending physical existence." "How long do we have?" Kim asked quietly. Admiral Han consulted her tactical displays. "Based on current consumption rates, the Swarm will reach the galactic core in approximately 6 months. The outer colonies will be consumed within weeks." Kim stood up from his throne, his enhanced mind processing possibilities and strategies at superhuman speed. Around him, the command staff waited for his decision, knowing that the fate of multiple species might rest on his next words. "The Galactic Council," he said finally. "Do they know what they're facing?" "Their technology is too primitive to detect the Swarm until it's almost upon them," Yoon replied. "They're treating it as a series of isolated attacks rather than an coordinated extinction event." Kim walked to the viewing screen again, looking out at the stars that had once been humanity's home. The species that had exiled them were about to face annihilation, completely unaware that their former victims had become powerful enough to help them. "Your Majesty," Admiral Han said quietly, "we could intervene. The Dominion has the technology to fight the swarm, but it would mean revealing our existence to the galaxy." Kim was silent for a long moment, weighing the decision that would change everything. Behind him, his advisors waited, knowing that whatever choice their emperor made would reshape the fate of countless worlds. "Prepare the fleet," he said finally. "It's time the galaxy learned what humanity has become." The Zephyrian Chancellor's translucent form trembled as he stood before the emergency council session, his once proud posture now bent with desperation. Around him, the remaining representatives of the galaxy's surviving species sat in stunned silence, their faces reflecting the same hopelessness that had consumed them all. "The Outer Rim is gone," he announced, his voice breaking. "Oh. The Corvan Empire, the Malari Confederation, the Altarian Republic all consumed. We estimate that 60% of all galactic civilization has been destroyed in the past 4 months." The massive chamber that had once hosted diplomatic celebrations now felt like a tomb. Half the seats were empty, their former occupants representing species that no longer existed.
Ow.
Those who remained were the lucky ones for now. "What about the defense fleets?" asked the Andromedan representative, her forearms gesturing frantically. "Surely the combined military forces of the core worlds can mount some resistance." "Destroyed," replied the Chancellor flatly. The Ninth Fleet lasted exactly 47 minutes against the swarm. The creatures adapt to every weapon we use against them. They learn from each encounter and become stronger. In the observation gallery, younger members of various species watched the proceedings with growing panic. These were beings who had known only peace and prosperity under the galactic councils. Rule, the concept of extinction-level threats, was foreign to them. "There must be something we haven't tried," pleaded the Centauri Prime Minister. "Some ancient weapon, some forgotten alliance, some technology we've overlooked." The Chancellor's laugh was bitter and hollow. "We've contacted every known civilization, searched every archive, activated every defense protocol. The swarm is unlike anything we've ever faced. They don't negotiate, they don't retreat, and they don't stop." Suddenly, the chamber's emergency alert system began wailing with an intensity that made everyone cover their ears. The main display screens flickered to life, showing sensor readings that made no sense. "What's happening?" demanded the Chancellor. "Energy signature detected at the Galactic Rim," reported a technician, his voice shaking. It's massive, beyond any scale we've ever recorded." The display showed a section of space that began to twist and bend as if reality itself was being torn apart. The gathered representatives watched in amazement as a rift opened in the fabric of space-time, revealing a darkness that seemed to swallow light itself. "By the ancient gods," whispered the Andromedan representative. "What is that?" Through the rift came ships, but calling them ships was inadequate. These were structures that dwarfed entire moons, vessels that seemed to bend, the laws of physics around them. They moved with impossible grace, their hulls gleaming with energy patterns that hurt to look at directly. At the center of the fleet came something that defied description, a vessel so large it had its own gravitational field, its surface covered in cities and forests and oceans. It was not just a ship, but an entire world, alive and breathing and aware. "Unknown fleet, identify yourselves," the Chancellor transmitted, his voice barely steady. The response came through every communication system in the galaxy simultaneously, carried by technology that bypassed all known security protocols. The voice was human, but enhanced with harmonics that spoke of power beyond imagination. "This is Emperor Kim Tae-young of the Intergalactic Human Dominion," came the transmission. "We have received your distress calls. The swarm is an old enemy one we are uniquely equipped to handle." The words hit the council chamber like a physical blow. Several representatives collapsed from shock, while others stared at the display in disbelief. "Impossible," the Chancellor breathed. "The humans were exiled 50 years ago. They were sent to die in the void." "We did not die," Kim's voice continued, filled with quiet authority. "We evolved." The human fleet moved with coordinated precision. That made the galaxy's finest military formations look clumsy. Their weapons fired beams of energy that seemed to rewrite the laws of physics, tearing through the swarm's defenses like paper. The mechanical creatures that had devoured half the galaxy found themselves facing something they had never encountered, a force that was not just their equal, but their superior. "The battle is over," Kim announced after what seemed like hours, but had actually been minutes. "The swarm has been neutralized. Your galaxy is safe." Image appeared on the main display, and the council members gasped at what they saw. This was no longer the primitive species they had exiled decades ago. Kim's eyes held depths of knowledge that spoke of eons of experience, and his presence radiated power that made the mightiest council members feel like children. "Tell," the Chancellor managed to ask. "You called us too dangerous for your civilized galaxy," Kim replied with a slight smile. "You were correct. We were too dangerous for your enemies. In the void, we found teachers you never knew existed. We became what we needed to become. Will you ... return to us?" asked the Malari Prime Minister hesitantly. Kim's expression became thoughtful. "The Dominion spans multiple galaxies now. We have outgrown the need for your approval or your borders, but we will be watching. The next time the galaxy faces a threat beyond its ability to handle, we will be there." As the human fleet prepared to depart through their impossible rift, Kim transmitted one final message. "You wanted to exile the dangerous species. Instead, you created the Guardians of the Void. Remember that the next time you judge a species for being different." The rift closed, and the human fleet vanished, leaving behind a galaxy forever changed and a council that finally understood what they had lost when they cast humanity into the darkness.